So David Lynch's The Straight Story. This is an extremely weird and interesting movie. A lot of people love Lynch, and so I went to watch this for my Oscar series, rewatch it actually, and I was really struck by it. So I'm going to share with you my essay on Substack. Go subscribe to my Substack, because when I'm struck by the spirit, I write about movies and I show images or occasional video clips over there too. It's just more of a written way of getting what I do on this channel out there than this video format which I'm in on YouTube. Here's my essay on The Straight Story. From a 2025 point of view, The Straight Story seems flat out weird. That includes the odd facts that it's a Disney movie that the MPAA rating system rated G. David Lynch made this 1999 movie right after he made his bizarro response to the O.J. Simpson trial, Lost Highway, check out my video on that, in which the postmodern psyche of America is depicted, in my opinion, as a schizo surveillance hellscape. Weird too, you can find The Straight Story among the plethora of commercial products that fill Disney Plus's offerings. I imagine a family somewhere stumbling upon it one night while searching through Disney Plus. Let's watch that, it looks cute. And then there's shot after shot of an old guy on a tractor. That's the story, Straight Story, based on a true story. A vision-impaired small-town codger travels most of the way across Iowa to Wisconsin to see his estranged brother who just suffered a stroke. They haven't spoken in 10 years. But the catch is he travels on his lawnmower. Approximate speed, 3 miles per hour. It seems impossible after you watch Lost Highway, Blue Velvet, and the Twin Peaks material, all produced between the late 80s and 1997, that David Lynch could figure out how to artistically depict this story in some awesomely nuanced, G-rated way. After all, his modus operandi in this period was to take American bourgeois normality and couple it with highbrow Euro-surrealism and cable TV sleaze. Part of Lynch's genius was to intuit how people perceive life filmically. In my view, in Lost Highway, he obliquely nails why Americans became obsessed with the disturbing murder trial in the early 1990s, so much so that I vividly remember being let out of school to watch the O.J. Simpson trial's verdict. The Straight Story takes place on a lost highway of a kind, Highway 18, running across the north part of Iowa. Richard Straight goes east from his hometown of Lawrence, Iowa. Who is he, and what does he perceive? Lynch's casting of Richard Farnsworth to play the lead couldn't be more perfect. Farnsworth plays Straight as lost in old age, as maybe he himself was. Quote, "The worst part about growing old," Richard Straight says, telling a younger man in the movie, "is remembering what it was like when you were young." Straight's not quite to the point of Levon Helms' character in The Three Burials of Melchiades Estrada, blind and begging to be killed, but you can imagine him getting to that point soon. Despite a deceased wife, 7 children, a brother, and who knows who else in his family, all Straight has currently in his family is his daughter, played by Sissy Spacek. She's lost children of her own, taken away by the state because it's believed she's unfit to be a mother. Both Straight and his daughter every day have a lot to mourn. Straight collapses one day in the beginning of the movie in the style of the widely mocked cable TV commercial in which an old lady shouts, "I've fallen and I can't get up." He's fine, but knowing his brother just had a stroke, life seems to be slipping away from him too quickly. This is represented several times as a leaky line or sprinkler, as water spurting out of an enclosed line, much like a blood vessel might leak or break during a stroke. Straight might be contemplating the possibility that he, too, like his brother, might face a stroke at any time, which means he could never see his brother in person again. Early in the film, as the character decides to go on a strange journey, Lynch lets Farnsworth sit near the window, camera closing in on just a bit as the shadows of rain down the window come over part of his head and face. This may be a visual reminder of stroke possibilities. Occasionally in The Straight Story, Lynch sneaks in his trademark surrealism and controlled microdoses. Like any patchwork narrative, we get snippets of Straight's story as he proceeds across Iowa. He meets several groups of people, each conversation revealing one more thing about him. In one late conversation, it turns out that Straight was a sniper in World War II, guilty of a friendly fire event that haunts him daily. That's one element Lynch was probably feeling at that point, in the late 90s, the impending loss of World War II veterans. I just saw yesterday, in early 2025, that the last pilot who flew in the Battle of Britain had died at age 104. They seemingly all gone now, these World War II vets, as it felt like was happening in the late 1990s. Where does time and life go? This last question is Lynch's meditation throughout the Straight Story. Formally, Straight's pace is an answer to that meditation. Life in old age slows down tremendously. It seems to be a drag. No longer can Straight drive a car. the best he can do is 3 miles per hour or less on his lawnmower. And early in the movie, he's told by a doctor he needs a walker. When Straight refuses, the doctor says to get a second cane. That is how Straight walks around throughout the movie, when he's not on his lawnmower. Now, I live currently about 90 minutes from Lawrence, Iowa. And if I were to drive in any direction from where I am, 360 degrees around me, the world would look exactly like it does in this film. Also, I've had both area codes mentioned in the movie. Imagining an old codger doing what Straight does seems odd to me, but also strangely understandable. It's not completely out of the question that I might do it myself at his point in life. The oldsters around here still prize their independence, and they're quiet, as my grandparents and other kin and friends have. But I need to watch this movie about once a month, probably for the rest of my life. That's because the pace of life for me, now a middle-aged nobody, has increased to an unendurable point, seemingly. One thing after another happens with no pause. Transportation goes faster, it seems, the internet goes faster, and phones go at warp speed. Straight's pace, which is Lynch's editing pace in the Straight story, is 3 miles per hour or less. It feels meditative. You too might probably need this movie. Now, one great shot has a long view of Straight on his lawnmower, and then the camera pans up to the clouds, and then it dissolves, which means we might anticipate a lot of time going by, but when the camera pans back down, the lawnmower has barely moved down the road. It's such a great shot. Lynch feels out how the pace of life, pretty realistic around these parts, creates the meaning of life. He goes back to a time before the 1840s even though Straight, of course, is riding on a low horsepower combustible engine. But at that pace, he might as well be riding on a horse that's walking or walking himself. Trains and then cars, in my opinion, created new perceptual meanings. Life could travel at 30 miles per hour instead of 3 almost all of a sudden in the mid-19th century. For Lynch, some of that is figured as monsters in the film, a la Eraserhead. Straight and the character of Nance in Eraserhead feel the alienation thanks to their landscapes and the speed at which things go. For Straight, it's the speed of life as figured by vehicles that pass him by. Semis, for example, are this movie's motor monsters. But even bicycles, figured as the annual Ragbri bicycle race across Iowa, go too fast. All that comes to a head when Straight loses control of his lawnmower midway through Act 2, when he pulls a heavy trailer when going down a hill. Lynch renders this as a manic moment, not far from what Fred Madison experiences schizophrenically, I think, in Lost Highway. You can see the standard Lynch shots of a fast race down a highway, camera pointed to the yellow road markings going by quickly. Lynch ends this sequence with a combination of Straight's near-death experience and the burning down of an old eyesore of a house, which typical Midwest types have pulled up their lawn chairs to watch. Here, Straight is no longer paired with water leaking, but with fire burning, annihilating the last vestige of an object that endured family and memories, a la Straight himself. And you get shots repeatedly of the deer antlers behind him, which, like the barn, could be a significant treasure in a way. They figure in this movie as a memento mori, a reminder of death for Straight. In an earlier scene, before this manic downhill moment, he encounters a hysterical woman who hits a deer, killing it while crashing her car. She complains almost uncontrollably that she's hit 13 deer in the past 7 weeks. Now, as a lifelong Midwesterner, I can almost believe that, and I feel her pain. But the deer is no prize, it's Straight's metaphorical crown that sits atop his trailer. In odd shots, it looks like he's wearing the antlers almost, as if he's the deer who can get hit by the monstrous machines passing him by at manic speeds. As Straight's journey goes, the people he meets seem to get older. The first person he talks to is a young, pregnant female hitchhiker. Then he talks to middle-aged bicycle racers. Next up are older folks, and then he runs into a fellow World War II veteran. Now, late in the movie, before reaching his brother's place in Wisconsin, he meets a priest at night in a graveyard. Throughout the movie, Straight knows he's about to die. Maybe Farnsworth did too. What's it all amounted to, this life? I think it's a lot of pain. He's quit alcohol thanks to a preacher from his past, but where's his family? And again, what's his life amounted to? The Iowa landscape gets transformed into a meditative space, basically throughout, where Straight undergoes a purgatorial journey of sorts. What you are supposed to do, maybe to figure out the questions above, is go really, really slowly. and that means staring at the stars. Lynch begins and ends the film with the star field, and you can't help but notice the camera in the stars at least a couple of times, certainly at the end. Now, you can't see the star field in most big cities. You have to go out to Lawrence to experience it, and even then and there, you'd probably need to drive outside of town. Thankfully for Strait, on his journey, that's almost always where he's at. His view of night is the star field. Now, what's the speed of stars? Well, up there in the stellar regions, okay, they're fast, but from this point of view, from Straight's point of view, slower, it would seem, than a lawnmower. I know the physicists will tell me that's not true, but from Lynch's point of view, which is the perception of the filmic world we're seeing, it's through the eyes of the mostly blind eyes of Straight, the stars barely move. Lynch might even be saying, before the ubiquity of black screens that suck in eyeballs and scroll at hypermanic paces, I mean the smartphone era we're in, that the blackness that you should really be staring into is the stars above. Anything faster than 3 miles per hour may be masking death, which looms like the dead deer's antler stretching out to catch Richard Straight.